What are you saying, bro? You ready for another lesson?
Man, I can't wait, man. It's been a while, So.
That's a screw.
You can even tell already, you know?
Hey, right rudder, that's it.
Wheel 01, you can backtrack now.
Needs to be over the field in between the two.
Alright.
What do you know about increasing the angle of bank?
Full speed.
Exactly.
You're fine, you're on the centre line, and then suddenly you're not, bro.
Next time you're in a grass patch.
That landing. Woo. I'm worn out.
Are you aiming to be a commercial pilot?
Yes, at some point.
Yes, so these calls, they have to be made in a commercial environment. Well done, mate. You're going to make a good commercial pilot.
Thank you.
I'll walk up behind the aircraft.
You're very behind the aircraft. We've got a fuel leak. Have we? Yeah.
By the way, go to the whiskey, sorry. The whiskey is quite strong. Mate, you're going to make a good commercial pilot.
You still have control.
No, you tell me when you want to take control. You tell me when you want to take control.
Ever? Do I have to?
Yes. As I say so. Bear in mind, you're going to have to work with what you've got, normally. What do you need?
This one. Oh. I'll make use of what I've got.
Previously on Future Pilot 901.
Okay, how you feeling?
Feeling good?
Good. You're gonna go solo.
Okay. Student Will 08 is ready for departure. We're off.
Student Wheel 08, surface wind is 330 at 9 knots, we've got one to vacate.
Student Will 08.
Charlie Kilo is the right base, get out to land. Student Wheel 08, minute takes and well done.
This aircraft is so nice to fly with.
Yeah, very nice.
Victor Golf, clear to enter South English airspace now in the climb task chute 3,000 feet, heading 090 degrees.
Yes, 3,000 feet is very nice and smooth.
Yeah.
It's not like in the cloud.
Victor Golf, proceed on location Sierra November. This comes the procedure report on both flights established.
The whole point of getting your IMC is you fly clouds. That's sort of where we are roughly. See?
Okay.
So we came in for an approach on runway 23. We did a missed approach, and now we're being vectored around to do another approach into runway 23.
Ever since I was a kid, I had a dream of becoming a pilot, but could never afford it. One day I decided to stop making excuses, to sacrifice my comfort, to make my dream happen. My name is D, and this is my journey. This is Future Pilot 901. Yes, what's up, people? Boys and girls, ladies and gents, aviators, aviation enthusiasts. This is Future Pilot 901 live. I'm your future captain. My name is D, and this show is brought to you live every Monday, 7 p.m. UTC or Zulu time. This is episode 25. Episode 25. We've made it to a quarter century. Shout out to you guys for joining in, for tuning in. Thank you very much for keeping it going, for keeping me going. Yeah, as you can notice, I've got different headset to what I usually have, and that's because I made the mistake of taking my headset to work, and there a young person got a hold of them, and but shout out to one of the faithful viewers, probably one that you will get to see in due time, who then made these headphones available to me for the use for these shows. So thank you very much to you. Shout out to you. All right, people. Well, today the main topic I want to get into is winter flying. Why? Because I'm going to be flying soon. So I thought, why not? It's a good time to refresh information about winter flying. And we've got fantastic information from the CAA Safety Sense Leaflet. So I'm going to be going through that and picking out some key bits that I need to remember for my winter flying. Now, if you're a student pilot, if you're a PPL looking to, maybe get into your first winter season flying, this is a good show for you to plug into. Potentially afterwards, I'll see how I feel depending on crowd participation. There are a couple of CAA updates and an update from the Air Accident Investigation Branch that I may look into depending on audience participation. But without further ado, let's get right into it. All right. Let me just pull that up. Let's have a look. Now, this is going to be a downloaded copy. If you have never seen this, you can just go into your favorite search engine, type in CAA Safety Sense Leaflet Winter Flying, and that will come up. Now, I'm going to annotate this and then download it for future reference. So feel free to follow me, download it yourself, have a look yourself. Or you can just check it out on the screen. All right. Let me just fix that. How's your weekend been, by the way? How are you guys doing? Let me just ban this person here. How are you guys doing? I saw something in the chat. Let me come back to you. The All Person Official, shout out to you. Yeah, I was looking for you on Monday. And you were not there. But glad you're here today, man. Glad you are here today. Let me know, what stage are you at? Are you aspiring pilot? Are you a PPL? Are you commercial pilot? Are you an airline pilot? Let us know where you're at in your journey, because we are curious. Alrighty. Let's hide that and let's get down to beeswax. It is quite an operation working this. I can see why Joe Rogan has Jamie. I wish I had Jamie I could call on. Hey, Jamie, pull it up, please. Because it's a little bit of work. handling all the tabs. But we make it happen. We make it happen. All right. All right. Glider pilot, but looking to do PPL. Nice. 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 I take it you're UK based, are you? If you are UK based, are you applying for the Air Pilots PPL scholarships? Are you self-funding for your PPL scholarships? How are you planning to get your PPL done? But I thought about getting into gliding, but never quite done it. I've done one experience flight, which I thought was very interesting. It was weird to have no engine sound and to not be doing my checklist, because as soon as that engine goes, you know, best glide speed, best field, aviate, navigate, communicate, bam, restart the engine, primer in and locked, mags on both, carb beat hot, mixture rich, fuels on, no restart, mayday, mayday, mayday. So being in a glider was a little bit weird because I didn't do any of those things because I didn't need to, because you're gliding around with no engine. Okay, self-funding. Fair. Yeah, so if you are, I mean, you don't lose anything from applying. If you're UK based, you do not lose anything from applying for a PPL scholarship. So, you know, if nothing else, you will learn a lot from the process. So I would suggest go for it. Otherwise, if you've got self-funding pathway as well, go for it. You know, whatever you can do to get yourself up in the air is incredible. All right. Shout out to everyone joining. Shout out to those that hide out in the dark alleyways of the internet, just kind of watching me and keeping an eye on me from a distance, but never saying anything in the chat. Shout out to you. All right, winter flying. So this is a Safety Sense leaflet. Let's have a look. So winter weather starts off with weather, then goes to aircraft preparation, then goes into takeoff and landing, in-flight icing, and post-flight. Now, full disclaimer, there are probably some bits I'm going to skip, potentially. We'll see how it goes. But there's some things I'm going to be highlighting, and we'll see what we make of it. Shout out to you, Dr. Timo. Am I saying that right? Am I butchering your name? Shout out to you. Thank you. All right. So, winter flying, and we're starting off with weather. I don't know about you guys, but Met was one of those subjects that I did not really enjoy. I did not really like, and I think it shows. It was a tough subject for me. So I appreciate moments like this where I can revisit some of that information. Whereas I think when it comes to, for example, human performance and limitations or principles of flight, I've retained that information a lot easier. So let's have a look. Winter may bring different weather challenges and rewards for GA flying. Colder temperatures and more precipitation bring icing, snow, and fog. Weather systems such as depressions will bring low cloud and rain and high winds. But winter can also be a time of stable conditions, crisp mornings, clear skies, and good visibility. One challenge of the UK flying environment is the changeable nature of the weather. And this is something we complain about all the time. If you're outside of the UK and you come to the UK, the one thing you can definitely do and, you know, get on with people is be sarcastic about the weather. And I think British people don't realize just how unique that is to the UK. It's very unique. And as somebody who grew up in Kenya and moved here when I was 13, it's definitely something I noticed. A lot of sarcasm over the weather. And that's because it's very changeable. And every year we complain as if, you know, as if it's a new thing. It's incredible. So different air masses and weather systems approach Periods of mild temperatures can give way to cold ones. The stability of the weather can change rapidly. And in fact, we say, in the UK, that you could have all the, every single season in one day. It can be sunny, then it snows, then it rains, it hails all in one day. It's crazy. You are encouraged to employ these principles of threat and error management when making weather-related decisions. TEM or TEM is about awareness of threats and considering plans to mitigate the associated risks. Identifying weather-related risks and how, it's a typo, and how to manage them is a fundamental part of good airmanship. That's a interesting typo there. Such understanding and preparation will increase your chances of successful flying and will help reduce the likelihood of encountering unanticipated weather conditions. All right, so let's have a look. Now, the main thing that I would focus on this page is that the Met Office is designated by the CAA Met Authority as the provider for regulated aviation weather information in the UK. Pre-flight planning should, as a minimum, include reference to regulated aviation meteorological products and information. Forecast services for GA are made freely available on the Met Office Aviation Briefing Service, and that's a service I use every single time I go flying. Okay, so you can get pressure charts, you can get low-level significant weather on there as well, which is very useful. Now, here's a few codes to be aware of. And for me, some of these were a reminder, a refresher, which is really good. TAFs and METARs. So TAFs is your terminal aerodrome forecast. And then this is the actual weather at the time. All right, METARs. I've forgotten what METARs stand for. Does anyone know what METARs stand for? Does anybody know what METARs stand for? Let me see. Anybody? Somebody? Anybody? METARs, Meteorological Aerodrome Report. Okay. Meteorological Aerodrome Report. So it's the current weather. Whereas your TAF, the funny thing is, so I've just put TAF into Google, and I work in children's services, and it's funny how you can work in two very different worlds and have the same acronym, but in one context you think of it one way, in another context you think of it in a different way. So when I'm in aviation, TAF is weather forecast. When I'm in children's services, a TAF is a team around the family meeting. But it's funny how you go into one world and completely forget the other. At least I do. There we go. Shout out to official, the all person official. Yes, it's Meteorological Aerodrome Report. Shout out to you. So we got snow shown as SN, hail shown as GR, snow pellets shown as GS, BR shown as mist, for mist, FG for fog. Now, fog is probably the easiest one to remember because there's just a letter O missing out of that. I'll be interested in whether anyone has ways of remembering these. Ways of remembering this. Snow is easy. Hail, I think that's grains, isn't it? GR for grain. So hail. What is GS? GS. GS. I can't French. It's all French words originating from the French grésil. Grésil. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. But yeah, a lot of them are French words. So this one is brume, which is French again. That one is French as well. So yeah, but you can maybe put it on some kind of post-it notes or what you might call it, flashcards, and try to memorize those. Weather systems. All right, here's where it gets a bit more interesting. Cold fronts. Cold fronts will normally bring cold and unsettled weather. And this is how a cold front looks like when you are looking at this. Yeah, your weather. This is form 215, I think. 214, 215. But so that is a cold front. Let's go back. Cold front. So cold air, and it's pushing behind warmer air. Showers and even wintry thunderstorms are likely at the leading edge of the front. So showers and thunderstorms are likely at the leading edge. Really, visibility tends to be good. All right, so that's something we like. Visibility tends to be good, but the weather will be changeable. So that's something to be cautious about. All right, never mind my lines. They will survive. With sudden drops in visibility likely as rain or snow clouds develop. Yeah, so this is something to be aware of. Visibility might be good, but the weather will be changeable with sudden drops. Temperature, wind speed, and direction may change rapidly as the front passes, particularly if it is interacting with warmer air. After the passing of the front, the weather would likely be unsettled for a while. Yeah, so after the passing, it's unsettled for a while, but good flying can often be had in the clear air left behind. That's good to know. Be cautious, as further showers and high winds often follow after the cold front has passed. Any rainfall may subsequently freeze overnight as the temperature falls. As the wind drops and the sky clears, overnight radiation fog also becomes likely. Okay, so gonna look out for radiation frog, radiation frog. That's some kind of Hulk frog. Any rainfall maybe is cool. That's good to know. So judging the night before how it rains, for example, if it rains, then knowing that because of the temperature drop, tomorrow it might be freezing in the morning. And so these are things to be mindful of next time I go flying. So kind of have an idea of what's happening the night before and how that might affect an early morning flight. When it's later in the day, there's more chance of the sun going up and kind of melting things. But when it's earlier in the day, there's less room for that. Okay, warm fronts. Warm fronts, was there a warm front there? There you go. So there's a cold front there and there's a warm front there. Cool. Let's read about warm front. Warm fronts in the winter tend to bring mild weather. Okay, so they bring mild weather, typically stratus cloud with rain. Flying conditions may be reasonable under a weak warm front, but watch both the cloud base and visibility, as they will lower significantly as the leading edge of the front passes at ground level. Okay, so cloud base and visibility, again, it's being mindful of that and having a look on here. So where are we? Where am I now? I'm around about about here, roughly I'm around about here, in which case, according to this forecast, I'll be expecting a warm front. And so as it passes, ground level, visibility, and cloud base may lower significantly. So if I was about to fly, I would then be mindful of this, that conditions could change, right? And that it may be unfavorable for VFR flight. So that's really useful to be refreshing. Okay, weather systems. So you got a cold front here, blue, and you've got these triangles, and you've got a warm front here, semicircles and red. And then it's showing the weather that's associated with that. Yeah. And that's something you can have a look at. Let me check. Is everyone still good? Yeah, we're still good. All right. A common weather system during the UK winter is the depression. And this is not a mental state, but rather this is an area of low pressure with fronts of cold and warm air circling. Yeah. Cold and warm air circling around it. These systems mainly form over the Atlantic before moving eastwards towards land. The warm front comes first, the signs of which will be lowering cloud base, mild weather, some precipitation, and strengthening winds. Remember, back here, as it passes ground level, we're going to have visibility reduce, we're going to have the cloud base reduce, but before that, we may have mild weather. All right, so again, a repetition here to help embed the idea. And since this is an area that I struggle with retaining information, the repetition is helping me. So depression, area of low pressure with fronts. Usually the warm front will lead first. Where are we? The warm front comes first, the signs of which will be a lowering cloud base, mild weather, some precipitation, and strengthening winds. The pressure will start to drop and continue to do so until the warm front passes. The cold front then brings lower temperatures, colder temperatures, showery precipitation, and gusty winds. Okay, so if we're in this region here, we're then going to experience the warm front and then the cold front. Often, by the time it reaches the UK, a depression will have started to occlude. Okay, and this is an occluded front with triangle and semicircles, and it's purple because red and blue makes purple. And so you can see it there. So often by the time it reaches the UK, a depression will have started to occlude, whereby the cold air behind the warm starts to lift the warm air above the ground. This starts at the center of the depression and moves along the leading edge of the warm front. The occluded part of the depression tends to be slower moving. Okay, so that is slower moving, but also brings low cloud and precipitation. Okay, so again, useful to know, it's slower moving and it brings low cloud and precipitation. Now, weather systems. So we talk about depressions, which form over the Atlantic, make their way, warm front first, cold front later, become occluded, and that the occluded front would be slower moving, but also bring low cloud and precipitation. Now we look at the opposite. Winter can often see periods of high pressure associated with stability in the atmosphere. Areas of high pressure are known as anticyclones and elongated areas as ridges. Temperature inversion layers will tend to form and fog may be more persistent. Okay, so that is something to be mindful of, especially when you're planning to fly and you see fog, like it might not clear, right? It may be more persistent. That's useful to know. When I might talk about inversion in a second. When pressure is high, air descends slowly in the atmosphere. So fewer clouds will form, and those that do will be shallow. Sometimes a low and widespread blanket of stratus clouds will develop as low-level rising air meets the inversion layer. Okay, so inversion layer. Let's have a look at an image of that. Inversion. Essentially, warm, cool. All right. I mean, this is a very, very basic version, okay? But normally the air is warmer near the ground, and as you go higher, it gets cooler and cooler. Whereas in an inversion, you have where weather is cooler near the ground, and then it actually gets warmer as you go up before it gets cooler again. And there is a, we'll read a bit more about it, but basically that's what happens in a temperature inversion, where it goes, the temperature goes up instead of down, and then at a certain point, which is the inversion layer, it then switches back to getting colder again. Something like that. Something like that. All right. So let's go back to our document, since a lot of the information there is apparently in French. Have I? There we go. There we go. Alrighty. See, this is the problem with having like 1,000,001 tabs. Where is Safety Sense? There it is. There we go. Now we're back. All right. So, sometimes a low and widespread blanket of stratus cloud will develop as low-level rising air meets the inversion layer. Okay. Although the weather will be stable, after a few days, haze and smog will tend to build, since particles in the atmosphere cannot escape in the normal way. Combined with the low winter sun, this can severely reduce visibility because of the haze and smog that builds up over a few days, even if conditions may look pleasant from the ground. And this is where it becomes a little bit, what you might call it, a little bit deceiving, because when you look straight up, it looks very clear. And even when you're flying, and this, I've definitely flown in this before, when you're flying and you look directly down, you see everything. It's like, it looks clear. But when you look along, or like in a diagonal, then you really struggle. And that's basically because you're looking through, if you look straight down, you're looking through less air than you are if you're looking across, and also it's a layer. So that's my best guess anyway. That is my best guess, people. Yeah, you're looking along more air, essentially, if you're looking on a diagonal. All right, let's get back to the beeswax. Fog. Fog can be persistent and difficult to predict. Most inland fog in the UK is radiation fog. Okay, which is caused by the rapid cooling of the ground, normally after sunset. The loss of heat from the ground will tend to cool the air immediately above, reducing its capacity to hold moisture. A key indicator is the reported temperature and dew point comparison. If the difference is reducing, the likelihood is that mist or fog will occur. Okay, so what to be mindful of is temperature and dew point reducing. Then mist and fog will occur. Okay, what does that mean? The temperature might be, let's say, 10 degrees. Dew point, let's say, dew point 5 degrees. Then later on, the temperature is 10 degrees and the dew point is 8. So there you're having the dew point temperature is reducing, right? The gap between the temperature and the dew point is decreasing, which means that there's a high likelihood of mist or fog occurring. Radiation fogs tends to form under clear skies when the temperature is cold and the winds are light. Sometimes heavy rain that leaves a lot of standing water can encourage fog to form in the temperature if the temperature subsequently drops. During the winter, fog is slow to clear, often taking much of the morning. Fog clearance is rarely uniform and can vary over small geographic areas or with elevation changes. So, for example, fog might hang around a bit more in the valley rather than, say at the top of the hill. If fog has lifted at your departure point, check it is not lingering elsewhere. All right, let's see. Is there anything from aircraft preparation that I want to pull out from here? Keeping your aircraft in the hangar is useful and safer. It's just talking about tying down and coverings. Also wing coverings, which I've not seen at all as yet, but wing coverings to reduce the lift produced by winds, which then means that it's less likely to move the aircraft. But yeah, basically just talking about using tie downs is advisable. All right, let's move on. Heater checks. I think this is something I want to zoom into. An important check for piston engine aircraft is the cabin heater system. This normally uses exhaust heat and can be a source of carbon monoxide poisoning. If the heat exchanger leaks exhaust gases into the cabin, this may go unnoticed during the summer when the cabin heat or demist vents may not have been used. Check that hot air comes. Okay, so this is something I'm going to need to do. Check that hot air comes from the heater as intended. The demist function could be vital with a windscreen covered in ice or condensation. A visual inspection of the exhaust and the heat exchanger should spot obvious cracks or holes. Okay, so looking out for cracks. Cracks or holes. But a pressure test is recommended to ensure that there are no smaller leaks that may not be visible. A smell of smoke, fumes in the cabin, and or large drop of engine RPM when applying carb heat are often associated with an exhaust system requiring attention. A mention of carbon monoxide, and of course, since January 2025, it became mandatory for operators of single-engine piston aircraft to have a carbon monoxide detector in the aircraft. But what the CAA did is to allow for better, for people to basically comply with that standard. They've allowed for you to use just kind of commercial off-the-shelf CO detectors. Okay, so let's have a quick look at this. De-icing equipment. Check all boots, pads, demisters, and fluid systems work as they should. Boots may have developed leaks from damage. If the aircraft is approved for flight in icing conditions, check all the equipment needed for approval is serviceable. The aircraft I fly is not approved for flight in known icing conditions, so that does not apply. For aircraft in the hangar, connecting an on-demand charger will help maintain battery conditions. Because aircraft left outside in the cold for long periods of time will have batteries that likely lose charge. And so you want to essentially avoid having the battery on for any real amount of time, because of that. And funny enough, this is something that I dealt with earlier this year, and I'm hoping to capture it in my review of the year, which is we flew out. Well, I didn't necessarily use the battery without the engine running, but what happened was we flew out to Southend and parked up, landed, everything was fine, turned the engine off. I think we went to McDonald's. Or we were just resting the engine, changing camera batteries. And I go to start the engine and it didn't move. It didn't go. This was in a PA28. So we were stuck there. We were trying to get a charger, trying to figure out if there was somebody to help us. And because it was a Sunday afternoon, there was no one to help us. In the end, we had to leave the plane. Good thing it's not too far from our base at Northfield. So we caught a cab back, and then the aircraft was later on retrieved by the group people that deal with those kind of issues. But yeah, in the winter, that is more likely to happen. It's more likely to happen. It's real. Right, oil and lubrication. Check that the oil grade in the engine is optimal for winter use. It may be that a different viscosity could work better in lower temperatures. And some people don't realize this as well for cars. In a car, you have different grades of engine oil, right? And the one that says 30 operates better in lower temperatures, in colder temperatures. The one that says 40, -40, operates better in warmer or hotter temperatures. So yeah, it's useful to know that sometimes there are grades of oil that work better in different temperatures. All right. Lower utilization. So one of the things that it mentions here is that long periods of inactivity are not good for the aircraft condition. And so we've got to keep flying. We've got to keep flying. By the way, just so you know, yours truly has signed up to Wingly. I'm on Wingly. So I've got a few flights that you can book with me if you're interested in that kind of thing for an experience. If you're based in the UK and based somewhere near Essex or somewhere near Northfield, or you can get to it relatively easily and you want to have that kind of experience, or you want to buy your experience for somebody else, why not? Let's do it. So you can find some flights on. By the way, just check out Wingly anyway. You don't have to check it out for me. Just check out Wingly, see what they've got. It's Christmas time. It's a good time to buy somebody a gift. It's going to be New Year's. Great time to buy yourself an experience. Of course, if you're an aspiring pilot, I would suggest get a trial flight. You'll get more out of a trial flight. But if you're buying a gift for somebody else, you just want them to experience it, jump on Wingly, buy them an experience, and I'm sure they would enjoy it. So I think I've got a couple of flights. One of my flights is a short 30-minute flight over Chelmsford and Hanningfield Reservoir. Then I got an hour flight, which is probably going to be Southend Zone Transit. Then I've got going to Duxford, transiting Stansted. Then I've got a flight to the Isle of Wight. So those are some pretty cool flights if you're interested in that kind of thing. All right, let's finish this up. So undercarriage, wheel fairings tend to trap mud and water, which may subsequently freeze and jam the wheels and or brakes. It may be advisable to remove them, particularly if operating on grass. Check the applicable airworthiness procedures for removing and refitting. Aircraft with retractable undercarriage require consideration and when operating with slush or other winter contamination, since it can freeze and interfere with raising or lowering mechanisms. Inspect the wheel wells to ensure they're clear of debris before and after flight. Okay. Wheel wells. and after flight. Tire pressures may fall with cold weather, so check for the correct inflation. Control cables. Control cables may need adjusting as slight contraction may occur in colder temperatures. All right. Now, ensure you wear warm clothing. See, this is where I feel vindicated, because earlier this year, as the winter season was on its way out, I went on a flight with somebody and I told them to bring a coat. And they decided that they didn't want to wear a coat and they didn't want to bring it. And I was like, hey, passenger, I told you to bring a coat. Why didn't you bring it? Well, I didn't have time and I didn't want to run late. So meanwhile, I'm thinking, look, ultimately, as the pilot in command, I'm the one that's going to have to, like, if we, have a forced landing somewhere and, we have to be exposed to the elements, I'm probably going to take care of them more than I take care of myself, right? Because I'm the captain. I want to assure the safety of my passengers and do whatever I need to do to make them comfortable. So I'm thinking, nah, I'm not going to put myself in that position. And then on top of that, and the more you fly, the more you will encounter different sort of people, where sometimes people think they know better than you. They actually, they really do act like they know better than you. And so I had to say, look, okay, cool. It's not necessarily a bad thing that you didn't bring. Maybe I'll try and mitigate it a different way. But here's the thing. If, like, going forward, if there's something that I ask of you, if you're like choosing an alternative or whatever, just like let me know earlier on at the earliest opportunity. That way I know and I can factor it in. Just let me know, okay? No issues, just let me know. And then they were acting like I was telling them what to do and that, like, overstepping my boundary. And I was like, okay, I guess we're not going to go flying. Because I need you to get that what I say to you is really important, is really, it has to do with safety. And so I need, essentially, as a pilot in command, I need you to comply, because the last thing I need you to do is to be freestyling when I'm responsible for you. In fact, when I went flying with my brother, I took my brother up for his 50th birthday. Was it 2025? Last year, 2024. And I said to him before we cross, there's like a kind of like a gateway that you cross, then you're on the other side. And there's a sign there saying no unauthorized personnel, blah, blah, blah. And I said to him, look, I want you to recognize one thing. And me and my brother, my family are quite funny. We have banter, we joke around. So I said to him, look, over this side, you're the big bro, I'm the little bro. But as soon as we cross that line, you become the little bro and I become your big bro, because I'm now responsible for you. Whatever happens to you is down to me. And so I'm going to need you to basically flow with what I ask you to do, because it's with safety in mind, right? And we laughed about it and he followed my instructions. But as a pilot, there's times when you're going to have to put your foot down. As a pilot in command, there's times when you're going to have to, unfortunately, say no to a flight, because the dynamic between, especially in a Cessna 172 where you're exposed. It's not like you're in a flight, you're in the flight deck and the door is completely locked. Obviously, in that case, you have to think about the passengers and how this person is going to be with other passengers and the rest of your crew. But it doesn't directly affect the actual manual or automated flying. Whereas in a Cessna, they're right next to me. And so I have to consider every time I go flying, do I want this person right next to me or not? And if you don't feel comfortable, you just have to say no. You have to say no. That's just how it works. And, you know, apologize about it, but still stand firm if you have to. But, or maybe don't even, maybe don't even apologize. Right. Ensure you wear warm clothing. Check that the aircraft is clear of frost. This is another one. I'll come back to that. Winter can bring fuel tank condensation. So pay extra attention to draining. Okay, that's something I want to pay extra attention to. Draining and examining the fuel to ensure no water is present. Deterioration of filler cap seals may allow rainwater into the tanks. Ensure all the fuel drains work correctly and close as they should. A moderate shake of the wings is sometimes required to dislodge any condensation present. Okay, moderate shake. Oh, that was a bit wonky. Moderate shake of the wings is sometimes required to dislodge any condensation present. Leaving the fuel tanks full will reduce the propensity for condensation to form. Pay extra attention to the pitot-static system and activate any system drains that may be fitted to the aircraft. This will reduce likelihood of trapped water freezing in flight. Check that the pitot heat works correctly. Consider making a checklist of items such as tie-down, control locks, and or different covers, which must be removed before flight and reinstalled when securing the aircraft afterwards. Okay, so removal of ice and snow. One of the things that I take away from this, or the most important thing I take away from this is, let's see, very, very important. All surface frost, ice or snow must be removed from the aircraft before flight. Even a very light film of frost may reduce lift by as much as 30% and drag 40% by 40%. Okay, even a very light film of frost may reduce lift by as much as 30% and drag by 40%. Laminar flow wings tend to be more vulnerable. Small amounts of frost or snow can normally be brushed off using a broom or similar, but be careful not to scratch the aircraft. Be wary of using cast style scraper on windows. Okay. Aircraft transparencies tend to be more vulnerable to scratches than automotive glass. That's useful to know. All right. Why is that important to me? That is very important to me because there was a time when I was a fresh pilot. My license was still, you know, I had the fresh smell and I was flying or about to go flying. And I was concerned about a little bit of frost that I saw that was like kind of hard to reach. Don't tell no one I told you this. But somebody, I won't rat them out. Somebody was like, yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I was like, are you sure? Like, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I was like, all right. Like, they know what they're talking about. They, you know, they've been a pilot longer than I have. They are running this organization, so they must know what they're talking about. Fine. It was only a little bit of ice, a little bit of frost, but I can't wait forever for it to melt. So fine, they said it's nothing. So I just went. I'm telling you the truth. I tell you I'm telling you the truth. I was a bit worried. I was a bit worried. just put it this way. The aircraft did not behave how I wanted it to. And I learned my lesson. You got a number for me to call? All right. Let's get it. What's the number? But yeah, so I learned my lesson. Because yeah, even a tiny bit can impact. So if somebody tells you nonsense that does not, correlate to the safety standards that you are being advised in the safety sense leaflets or whatever, the authoritative documents are, then feel free to tell them, well, you can say it kindly, or you can, no, just say it kindly. Just say no thanks. How about that? Just say no thanks. So if that was to happen to me again, I would definitely say no thanks, because that day I was only doing circuits, but yeah, I was just like, something's just not right. Something's not right. It's not behaving the way I expected to. And never again. Lesson learned. Okay, moving swiftly on. Aircraft preparation. Okay, this was interesting. Engine handling. Most light aircraft engines are air-cooled and therefore vulnerable to the effects of rapid changes in operating temperature. Particularly in winter, power changes should be made in a smooth and linear fashion. Long periods at idle power, both in flight and on the ground, should be avoided. Okay? Idle should be avoided. Long warm-up periods at low power are not necessarily good for an engine. So that was an interesting part, right? Because you'd think, oh, well, and an instructor actually told me this. They said, oh, well, one of the things you can do is just give it 5 minutes more to warm up. Well, long warm-up periods at low power are not necessarily good for an engine. The oil may not circulate well at low temperatures, and carbon deposits on the spark plugs are more likely. The AFM, or aircraft flight manual, should specify minimum engine parameters for takeoff. If the engine stumbles when applying higher power, it may need more time to reach the correct operating temperature. In flight, monitor temperatures and pressures as normal and look out for excessively low oil or cylinder head temperatures. Now, starting is an interesting part here. What do I want to pull out of starting? Okay, I want to go straight to this point. A common issue with starting in cold weather is over priming, and I have seen this. I have seen an engine fire on start before as well. It wasn't in my aircraft, it was in somebody else, but I was watching them start an aircraft, and there was an engine fire on start. If an engine does not start after the recommended fuel priming amount has been applied, avoid the temptation to repeatedly add more fuel. You will likely flood the engine and create a fire risk. If you've been watching the streams on a Thursday, you know that I've been practicing emergency procedures. And here it says, wonky line, it says, know the procedure for clearing a flooded engine and dealing with fire during startup. And essentially that is to lean the mixture, open throttle, keep cranking for 3 to 4 seconds, according to my checklist. This is something that I've been practicing on the streams on a Thursday, so you can join those, or go back to the YouTube channel to see what I've been doing. I think last session was engine fire on start, during taxi on the ground, in flight as well. And I've been practicing other emergencies also. All right. Of course, if you want to look at this more deeply, then feel free to look up the document. Takeoff and landing. The snow clearing capabilities of most GA aerodromes in the UK are limited. It may not be possible to operate with significant snow or other winter contamination on the ground. More common issues are likely to be ice on hard surfaces and grass that is wet and muddy. If flying to another aerodrome, it may be prudent to discuss runway conditions with the aerodrome operator before departure. For example, many private strips may not be suitable during the winter. It's important to consider the conditions as applicable to your aircraft skills. This is where you need to know where you are at. It may be that others are flying, but for example, a tail dragger with oversized tires will likely be able to operate on surfaces where a nose gear aircraft would struggle. Okay. So anticipate how conditions are likely to evolve over the day. Anticipate how conditions are likely to evolve over the day. In the morning, frost and ice make conditions slippery. Snow and ice may thaw as the day goes on, but not always consistently. Grass surfaces may become muddy once they begin to thaw. Towards the end of the day, temperatures will start to fall and contamination may freeze and become hard and slippery again. Okay, so with taxiing, it's all about anticipating. Anticipate when you will need to slow down and minimize the use of brakes. Avoid taxiing through mud or slush that may stick to the underside of the aircraft and foul the wheels and brakes. So if you want to inspect, you can inspect on foot first, depending on where you are and whether that is possible. Of course, in other aerodromes, they will inspect for you and they won't allow you to taxi if it's an issue. So you just need to know about where you're from or where you're flying from and to. Let's see. So takeoff and landing, you've got your factors that you should multiply together. Depending takeoff depending on the surface that you're on and the condition of those surface, and also for landing you have it there. Carb icing is obviously a very pertinent risk pretty much at any time. So here you can see how it works out. It could be 10 degrees and say the dew point is 0. (10 degrees dew point 0), and let's say the precipitation or the humidity is 60, then it could still be likely to have carb icing. And the dark blue / purplish dark blue, any power setting, you can have carb icing. Moderate icing, cruise power, serious icing, descent power for those colors. So you got a bit of a key there. Yeah, light icing, cruise or descent power. So you've got different moments of risk, essentially different elements of risk depending on the conditions for carb icing to occur. And so operating the carb heat is essential. So check whether the conditions are conducive to carburetor icing. It is not necessarily in colder temperatures that carb icing becomes more of a risk, but often in the range between 0 and 10 degrees Celsius and with high relative humidity. So 0 to 10 degrees Celsius and high relative humidity make it a lot more likely. Signs of high humidity include temperature and dew point being the same or close. And again, we're expecting mist or fog to to occur in those situations. The ground being wet from condensation, rain or fog, or a low cloud base. Carb ice tends to form slowly, so keep an eye on engine RPM or manifold pressure with a constant speed propeller for any signs of power loss. Carb heat should be checked as part of the pre-takeoff checks. You should see a slight drop in engine RPM when applied, since the air entering the engine will be hotter and therefore less dense than through the normal air intake. The RPM should recover once the carb heat is selected off. If the engine runs rough, keep the carb heat applied. Ice may have built up while taxiing, and the engine should recover once all the melted ice has dispersed. Okay. If operating in conditions conducive to carb heat icing at cruise power, you should normally apply carb heat for around 15 seconds every 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so 15 seconds every 10 to 15 minutes during cruise. Remembering that carb icing builds slowly. Yeah, so 15 seconds. Every 10 to 15 minutes. And we're soon going to be wrapping this up. But before we do, here's a short, brief commercial break. Ever since I was a kid, I had a dream of becoming a pilot, but could never afford it. One day I decided to stop making excuses, to sacrifice my comfort, to make my dream happen. My name is D, and this is my journey. This is Future Pilot 901. Ever since I was a kid, I had a dream of becoming a pilot, but could never afford it. One day I decided to stop making excuses, to sacrifice my comfort, to make my dream happen. My name is D, and this is my journey. This is Future Pilot 901. Yes, my camera decided to play up, but we are back. We are back. All right, let's finish this up. Cool. The carb heat should be applied continuously when the engine is at low power, for example, during descent. Prolonged periods of idle power should be avoided. So if you're practicing, for example, you're doing your practiced forced landings, then you want to make sure you keep warming up the engine and not running idle for long periods of time. Carb heat should be selected off prior to landing to ensure maximum power is available. Okay, prior to landing to ensure maximum power is available. And I usually call that out loud when I'm about 300 above. I say carb heat is away, ready for a go around if I need it. Be aware that carb heat normally bypasses the air filter on the ground. Use is only recommended when stationary. Otherwise, debris may be sucked into the engine. Okay, so on the ground, use is only recommended when stationary. For example, when you are doing your power checks. Okay, in-flight icing, airframe icing. Okay, let's have a quick look at fuel-injected engines. Do not suffer from carb icing, but it's still possible for ice to build up in their intakes. All right. Airframe icing will normally occur when flying in visible moisture with an outside air temperature of 0 degrees Celsius or less. Freezing levels in terrain. I don't fly in IMC, so that's not relevant for the VFR pilot. So I guess one of the other key things that is referred to here is if you're going to descend into warmer air, you just need to make sure that you are still clearing terrain, that you've got enough clearance of terrain, because you could be trying to deal with one problem and flying yourself into another problem. All right. So clear ice, as the name suggests, is more transparent, caused by larger supercooled droplets found in clouds with more vertical development. When they hit the aircraft, the droplets tend to spread and flow back. So you can see clear ice goes on there, right? Rime ice is composed of smaller supercooled particles that freeze on impact and stick together to form a milky and powdery deposit. Some of the most severe icing can be caused by rain. Flight in such conditions should be avoided in light aircraft, even if approved for flight in known icing conditions. Okay, and this is where it talks about if you're dealing with airframe icing. If cruising in icing conditions, check that equipment is functioning correctly and monitor airspeed. Remember, if you're building up ice, what happens is you build up weight and you build up drag. So increase of weight increases your stall speed. So what is normally your stall speed without ice, without the extra weight, would have increased, and that becomes a risk. The worst icing is often found in bands of several thousand feet, so icing may reduce in severity if you climb or descend. Only commence a climb if you have reasonable performance margin, but it may allow you to cruise in air with less supercooled precipitation present. Descending is normally safer, okay, but wonky, but always remain aware of terrain. If you experience a severe icing encounter and the ice cannot be dispersed from the aircraft, anticipate control difficulties, inform ATC, and consider declaring a mayday, depending on how severe the situation is. Keep the aircraft speed high as possible, as high as possible. The stall speed will have increased, but you will not know by how much. The stall warner may have frozen and no longer function. If you suspect propeller icing on a constant speed unit, cycling the RPM up and then down again may shed some ice. Okay. If you can see excessive ice on the wings, there will almost certainly be even more on the tail. This will reduce elevator authority and make the aircraft heavier in pitch. In extreme encounters, the tail may stall, leading to loss of control. If the autopilot is engaged, check that it's not applying excessive nose-up trim, since this is a sign of lift being lost. If you appear to be losing airspeed, carefully disconnect the autopilot and be ready to deal with an out-of-trim conditions. You may need to descend to maintain a safe airspeed. Okay, so when it's icing, dealing with icing, stall speed increases, lift reduces, weight grows, drag increases, thrust decreases. Okay. Clean the aircraft post-flight. Clean the aircraft if necessary. Mud and slush may dry or freeze and subsequently be harder to remove. Dirt on the underside may cause a reduction in performance. Inspect the wheels and brakes to ensure they are free of contamination. The next pilot may not appreciate finding the brakes frozen with mud. Okay. Yeah, all the rest is basics. Okay, you should wear suitable clothing for the conditions. You want to be comfortable and you want to be ready, because in some parts of the UK, rescue could be some time and the effects of exposure will quickly set in if you're not dressed to survive. Okay, Under Part NCO, Part 21, aircraft are required to have a fixed emergency locator beacon or ELT, or for aircraft with less than 6 passenger seats. The flight may carry a personal locator beacon, PLB, instead. Consider carrying such equipment such as survival bags, torches, whistles, and to aid survival and rescue. So one of the things I always take, for example, is not exactly related to this, but sick bags. I always have sick bags. I always have high-vis. I always have my handheld. But it's useful to think about having a survival bag with you every time you fly, just in case. It's better to be prepared and for something like that to not happen than for it to happen for you to not be prepared. And it doesn't really take much to be prepared. All right. Well, that, ladies and gents, boys and girls, aviators and aviation enthusiasts, brings us to the end of our study of winter flying. That was winter flying according to the CAA Safety Sense Leaflet number 3. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, I like to use these episodes as a way for me to learn, to remind myself, to refresh, and hopefully it's useful to you as well. It's kind of like a little bit of peer study. And hopefully I'm sharing stories, personal stories, that also helps to bring the information to life. I hope so. But thank you very much for tuning in. Man United is playing. The match has started. It's 24 minutes in, so I want to get out of here. But before I do, shout out to the new subscribers on the YouTube. If you're new, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification, smash that like button because it helps. If you're on Kick, make sure that you hit that follow button so you never miss when I'm on. Next stream will likely be on Thursday, likely 10 p.m. UTC, when I will be doing a flight from Northfield to Duxford. Why? I hear you ask. Because my next flight is going to be from Northfield to Duxford, and I'm going to use that as a way to prepare for that flight. So if you have your questions about how I prepare or my procedures, I'm going to be transiting Stansted controlled airspace. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. But for now, if you've never seen any of the content on the Future Pilot 901 page, why don't you check this out?
Nice takeoff.
That's a screw. I was waiting for that because everyone does it.
I'm gonna make sure that you can do it. And you can do it, I know.
Can you get to the height of a double-decker bus?
How about this height?
Smoothly throttle to idle. Smoothly raise the nose.
This is floating. It's float.
Yes, man. Good food after hard days of flying, bro.
Bro, it's needed, man. That landing, whew. I'm worn out.
Yes, make sure you hit Future Pilot 901 on the YouTube page so that you can catch up with how I got through my PPL training. All right, people, I'm still working on plans for New Year's. New Year's from January the 5th to January the 9th is going to be a show every day. I'm going to have guests on for the first time ever on the Future Pilot 901 live show. So I'm excited about that. We've got a flight instructor, got an aspiring pilot, got a therapist, got sports, a psychotherapist, a sports therapist, all kinds of therapists. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and I hope you will join me on that week. I don't know how I'm going to manage it, to be honest. I don't know what clothes I'm going to wear for it, but I know some way, somehow we're going to make it work. So I hope you will join me for that. I was just enjoying my Nature Valley bar. Shout out to Nature Valley. I was enjoying that in the commercial break. But yeah, people, I hope you have a great, productive week. I hope today was useful, and I shall see you soon. Until next time, this is your future captain speaking. My name is D, and I'm reminding you to live your dreams. Peace.
Man, from living in my car to finally getting my trial flight done. To being in this moment.
Hey, come on!
Well done. Was it worth the sacrifice? Oh man.
Flat. Pull back. Hey, pull back more. Hold it there. Pull back.
Radar 130.
Bit more.
Listen. Was it worth the sacrifice?
So, power right on. Center line.
Listen, if you have a dream, it's down to you to make it happen, man. You might give it everything and it might still not work, but guess what? The journey makes you a better, stronger person. Can you imagine what kind of person you would become if you didn't pursue the one thing that you thought was the best thing in the world? You didn't pursue it. What kind of person does that make you after 20, 30 years of doing that? But when you chase what you believe is the most valuable, the most beautiful, the most awesome thing that you can do, and you give it everything, win or lose, you become a better person.